and we'll see here too if you're going live. So I think we are live at the moment. So
Awesome.
jumping off here, we are going to be today. We're going to be talking with Anthony Brown, just a little bit about business. We're going to go over some topics that him and I have kind of discussed in the past, and we figured we're going to jump on today and just talk a little bit about growing a business, some of the things that come up in business. And so kind of getting started, I guess, Anthony, you want to give us just a little bit of background on yourself and, kind of let everybody know who you are and what you do, man.
Yeah. Well, like I said, my name is Anthony Brown. Been in sales for a little over 15 years. Currently a assistant broker for a brokerage here in Edmond, Oklahoma. Do coaching and some things like that on the side with an additional business. It's kind of what I do, man. I just want to be able to touch lives and make the world a better place.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things that you and I talked about too is just some of the struggles, right? Just that, especially people in business today, um, that we constantly are getting, especially in the face of technology and how fast things are moving. So, like, what are some of the main things that you're finding are like, hey, here's some issues that I'm having, or how are you solving those problems?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is so many business owners get kind of trapped in the endless time warp of trying to stay ahead of the game when it comes to technology.
Yep.
And the question I think I get asked the most is, what's the best CRM to use, or what's the best email source to use, or what's the
Yeah.
best AI to use? My answer is always the one you use, the one that you use consistently. And so I think the biggest thing that I've noticed for me in both worlds that I'm in, whether it be real estate or the coaching kind of world, is figuring out the technology piece. I think right now in the age of technology, we're having so many things, so many new exciting shiny things come up. That we sign up for all these different things and we get lost in this world of,
Shiny object syndrome.
yeah, it's like, what do I do now? What's next? So I think
Right.
that's a huge piece. I think a lot of it is built around FOMO, where people are like, oh, I want to get ahead of like Sora right now. Sora is this AI is just insane of the train. I can't pull up Facebook right now while seeing some kind of Sora video. So I think
Yeah.
people get caught up in the FOMO of that, and it causes this. Am I using the right app effect? And it causes kind of a gap where kind of a jack of all trades but master at none, so to
Yep.
speak. That's what I'm noticing a lot.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. And I think too, I actually so the newsletter we put out once a week, I'm covering like different topics on how I tackle some of just business issues in
Right.
general, right? And the process that I really started using is I caught myself probably, I don't know, 2, 3 months ago, and I was that exact person. Like I was sitting on my feeds on YouTube channels, and I'm like, man, there is so much out there. Like, and then you start to really dig into some of these platforms, and a lot of them are very secular. And so like for me and most of my clients, like we're using Go High Level. Not everybody does, but that's primarily kind of the source of where the CRM websites, all that sort of stuff that we're using. And so a lot of times it's like, man, this widget is great, but do you actually have a process set up to allow that to function within your business? Or is that going to become just an added like headache for you? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so a lot of times, like what I've been really focusing on, and it's something I've helped other people with, I just haven't done it for myself, which is
That works.
typical, right? But a lot of times what I'm doing now is finding kind of one activity that I really want to do. Like, hey, I have a massive LinkedIn network. How do I touch more people? Right. And so it's like, what do I want to do? What's my goal there to actually accomplish what I'm trying to do? For that, it's just letting people know how I can add value to their lives potentially, right? It's not a sales thing, it's not anything. It's just like, how do I get in front of more people to let them know, hey, here's what I offer. And then from there, I think in today's world, we don't want to do things manually anymore, right?
Right.
Like we just want like the quick fix. Here's a piece of technology that's going to get us to where we want to go, and we're not actually thinking through how is this going to interact with every other aspect of my business? And so
Right.
that's been a really, I've tried to like slow that down a little bit internally, and even with some of the clients we're working with,
Yeah.
is just to say, okay, hey, if we're going to implement this piece of technology or this system or whatever that is, we have to do that process almost manually first a little bit, because we need to understand the downfalls of that. Like, how much time am I going to allocate to this? And then is there a piece of software, technology, widget, whatever that is, that we can actually implement into the business that is going to save us time? Because
Yeah.
I've done it before, and I know a lot of people have too, is you implement the system or the technology or the software, and then it winds up causing you more time in maintaining it, right? And so I think listen, I love AI, I love technology, like automations, like anything like to make businesses run more efficiently. That's where we live, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times, if you don't have the proper processes or systems in place to actually implement those things, you're going to cause yourself more headaches. But it is hard when your feed is just full of like the next thing, the next thing,
Yeah.
the next thing, you know?
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, and this is something we say, in our office a lot, is you have to get effective before you can get efficient. I think so many times people try to shoot for efficiency, where it's like, what can I do that will replace me? And I think there's not a good grasp on the framework that goes behind that. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes, especially when you're building teams and you have people around you that you're trying to reduplicate yourself in, if you're not careful, the the intentionality and the intent on why you're doing what you're doing is lost. And so now if you have this robotic system while you're dealing with live bodies and warm blooded people, and
Yeah.
you miss kind of the whole piece that you're able to establish there, which I think is a lot of the reasons why so many businesses are having problems with retention and
Yeah.
organic reach, because everything is on this automated piece, this reduplication piece. And I think a lot of businesses, I think COVID caused a major retraction in going back to the bases, the basics.
Yeah. Big time. And I love what you said there too, because it's something that I've had conversations about with numerous people. Is I started my career in sales back when it was like, here's a list of 100 people a day. You're going to cold call, and then maybe
Yeah,
you're sending some emails. Like, email was kind of a thing, but you could send 400 or 500 emails and get deals out of that, right? And then it became, okay, now we can text, right? So now we're going to text, we're going to call, we're going to email, we're going to hit them from all these spots. Then social media became bigger and bigger and bigger with all these different platforms. And so people are just getting inundated. And now we're just automating everything as from a standpoint of, I feel like there's going to be some sort of tipping point, maybe, where people are going to kind of revert back to this, which is like, I know we're on, technology, but like actually meeting people face to face, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And having those conversations and those sort of things. And so that's something that I'm just trying to figure out, where is that trend fully going to go? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Is everything going to be AI, or are people going to, how quickly are people actually going to adapt to that from a like the general public, more or less? You know what I
yeah.
mean? And I think it's a fine line that we're playing, because that human connection is very important in business. Like,
Um,
it's everything, you know?
yeah, yeah. When I think too, it's like, kind of to your point, I was reading a statistic that was really interesting the other day, and I don't remember the exact um, numbers on it, but it was like, I think it was like around 95 to 97% of people have never received a handwritten letter. And I was like, I sat there and thought about it. I was like, wow, like outside of like getting a birthday card or anniversary card for my wife, or friends or family for my birthday, I don't know that I've ever received a handwritten letter from a business person. And so I think
Yeah.
we all focus, trying to crawl our way to the top in a very saturated market when it comes to technology. Which, like you said, technology is great. I mean, but it's also a tool that enhances us as people. It's not something that's going to be able to replace us as people. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting lost in translation with that. It's like dealing with, like I said, warm bodies, humans that want that warm touch. They want to be able to
Yeah.
speak to one, and those things. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how things go. I think the more that we get reliant on technology, we make ourselves very susceptible to things like AWS going down, and half of our
Right.
working, and it's like my son called me while I was at school. He's like, Dad, our school program's down. We had to use a textbook. I've never even seen a textbook before, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm aging myself. My son's handwriting in a textbook when they use tablets and laptops all day, and it just really put everything into perspective for me of like, wow, we've really lost touch to things that are tangible.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, primarily what I focus on with a lot of clients is like, how do we become more efficient, right? But in that same sense, I just think implementing the right systems, like you were talking about, is like, okay, well, what CRM do I use? Well, which one is going to function in the way that is best for your business, right? Most CRMs are pretty standard across the board at this point, right? Now there are some like Go High Level that have a million other features. Well, that may not be the fit for you. You know what I mean? But what's the tool that's actually going to make you the most efficient in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I think if you can start to stack in that way, then you can start to slowly replace yourself, because that's the other part I've seen is where somebody's very early on in their business and it's like, well, I just want to hire and replace myself. And it's like, well, okay, but in certain instances that may make sense. You know what I mean? But like
Yeah,
replacing yourself too soon can also lead to massive downfalls for
absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. And I think anytime you're implementing new processes and new procedures, I think we kind of live in this microwave age where we expect instant results. And
Right.
you need 30, 60, 90 days for you to even see if something's going to work better or not better. And I think we're so quick to add things. My process, and this is what I teach in my coaching programs, is if you're going to implement something new, you got to take something else away. You've got to be, add, delete, and make sure that you're not getting so to the point where your process is so convoluted with new things that you're adding that no one knows what you're doing, and it's just this big blob of mess. There's no
Right.
structure framework to it. One of the
Well, I
things
always keep going.
I was going to say, to your point, one of the CRMs that I use is also Go High Level with my coaching company and courses and stuff. And I've had to really, really put the limiters on for myself because I'm like, oh, I can do chatbots, I can do, automated emails, I can do automated text messages, I can do all these things, and I'm like, nope, I need to focus on the the standard functionality of what I need, not get too lost in the weeds, and kind of
Yeah.
focus as that builds, kind of walk that out.
Yeah, I love Go High Level, by the way. Like I really do. And I've become very efficient at it and all of the features and all of that. And I always tell people when I'm first showing them the system is like, Go High Level is good and bad for the same reason, in that it does pretty much everything, right?
Yeah,
Like it's a lot of times I get asked like, well, can you do this? And I'm like, well, I haven't done it before, but I know how to do it. You know what I mean? And I know the functionality enough to know like, yeah, we can build this,
yeah,
which is a scary thing sometimes. But I do want to shift a little bit, and I'd love to hear a little bit more from you on some of the things, like some of the areas that you've struggled in your kind of entrepreneurial journey,
yeah.
and some of the things that maybe anybody that hears this is going to say, yeah, I've been there before, and how you got out of that. Like maybe one or two things that you're just like, yeah, this was a major struggle for me.
Yeah, I would love to. One of the biggest things that comes to mind when you say that is the outside noise of just being an entrepreneur in general. Everyone has their opinion on how things should work, how to do it, dreams, aspirations, goals. A lot of times, family can come in with their opinions and kind of their limiting beliefs. And so, for me, the slogan to my coaching program is redefining success, realigning purpose, and releasing potential. Um, I think that when there's so much outside noise, you lose the ability to hone in and focus on why you do what you do anyway. Like what you do on a daily basis. It's yes, it's software. Yes, it's to be able to help and scale and grow businesses. But at the end of the day, just knowing you as well as I do, it's like you have a heart to help people, no matter how that looks. Whether that's through software, whether that's through consulting, whatever that's through, that's our heart is. We want to help people and want to help them become better.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to listen to the outside noise and really have those things kind of convoluted in our head on what direction we should take. And I think it causes a lot of limiting beliefs that we have to walk through and walk out of in order to even chase our dreams and our goals and our aspirations. I know growing up for me, um, there was a lot of people in my family who weren't really doing anything with their life. And for me, it's one of those things that I've always wanted more. And if I would have allowed the environment that I was in to dictate what direction of success and what it looked like for me, um, I would have
Yeah.
been and stayed very, very stagnant. So I think for me, it's all in a nutshell. Um, my goal is to help people redefine what success is. I think social media tells us that success is Rolexes, Ferraris, mansions, and all these different things. But if you're a teacher who your heart is to be able to teach the next generation and be able to help educate a group of kids, and you make $45,000 a year, and that makes you happy, that's success.
Yeah.
And I think
Big time.
if you listen to the outside noise that tells you that's not, that's what makes people are very miserable. That's what makes people question what they're called to do, what they're supposed to do. And I think that's a trap that we all are susceptible to fall into, and we have to be really, really careful with.
Big time. And I'd love to add on to that too, because I feel that. Oh, you know what I mean? Like I think you always feel that. Like I'm very fortunate to have parents and sisters and some very close friends that just know like, hey, Drew is probably not going to work for anybody else. Like he
Yeah,
struggles to do that, right? Like that's just it's how I've always been. But going back to like taking the advice of outside people, there was a guy that is a good friend of mine, and he wound up selling one of his businesses for a good amount of money. And he was in the process of trying to like negotiate a deal, and he was going to take some advice from his parents, and he wound up hiring a guy that was an expert in selling businesses,
yeah,
and he wound up paying the guy a fee, but he wound up making like 20% more on the business. And so I think sometimes like, especially the people that we're closest with, we want to take their advice. But I think if you're going down that route, you need to understand like their perspective and your perspective are two different things. Like they don't have your experience. They're not talking to the same people you're talking to, failing the same way you're failing,
yeah,
succeeding. Those are, and not to say that their opinions don't matter at all, right? Because obviously
absolutely.
the people that are closest to you probably know you the best. But I think that is something that I've really had to take a step back and sometimes and realize like, okay, I need to stop talking about this to everybody and figure out like, is this in alignment with my values? Is this in alignment with where I'm going? How do I feel about this? And a lot of times like you can get a lot of outside noise that can really steer you in directions, not because they intentionally want to like put you in a bad place, right?
Yeah,
Because they want you to succeed. They want you to do better. And so that's something that I've really um try to do better at, is just like, hey, if I am going to ask for advice, making sure that either I'm looking through it from their lens so I understand their perspective and I'm taking it from that perspective, or trying to find somebody that's actually gone through what I'm going through that can really give me some real like world advice.
yeah,
And yeah, the social media thing like you touched on, that's that's a scary thing, because it's easy to post pictures, it's easy to sit in front of a car that isn't yours, or put on a watch at a store and take a pic. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different things. I'm not saying everybody does that,
yeah.
but it is something to be aware of. Like you're taking your real life and comparing it to somebody's highlight reel, right? And I heard that somewhere and I was like, man, that's the truth, right? You're only posting the good things, right? Like
Well, and the
so
thing is, they don't really matter, and it's like something you said that really stuck out to me was I think we have to realize, and this is where it gets hard and tricky, is the people who are around us, our friends, our family, our parents, whoever it is that are speaking into us, they have the best intentions. It's not an ill intention, but I think
big
if
time.
we're people, we don't kind of zoom out on the picture and realize that sometimes people project their own fears upon us, and they want us to play it safe because they don't want to see the repercussions of what failure could ultimately do to us. But I think when you run across people like
That,
us, people who are watching us, failure is what we're striving for, because through that failure we're able to learn. I
yeah.
don't think people take into account the resilience that some people actually have, and that's what makes you successful.
I
And
mean, I've
most,
almost quit 400 times in the last 2 years. So like, yeah, man, like you, that the mental game that you play, like, but I think you hit it on the head there, which is like a lot of times it's the people that are closest to you that care the most about you that don't want to see when you fail how that's going to affect you, right? They're just trying to help you avoid that feeling, but ultimately, like you just said, if you're in this game of trying to create your own business and create your own legacy and like doing all the things that you're trying to do, you know, and I know, like you're gonna fail and you're gonna fail miserably, and then it's a matter of like, can you learn from that and move forward from it? You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so it's just an expectation of like, yep, I'm gonna fail today. Like
yeah,
I've actually started writing down like, here are the areas that I failed today. Like how do I avoid those? You know, not to focus on them, but to just
yeah.
make them like, hey, this happens all the time. How do I get better? You know?
Well, a question I have for you, and I'm really interested to hear your answer is: Would you do you care more about failing, or do you care more about the regret of not doing?
Mm. Um, man, that's a question that I want to answer this uh, well. So I think it's changed for me. I think when I first kind of really started on what I would consider an entrepreneurial journey, um, I was scared of failure because I was scared of not even so much failure, but scared of like letting people down in my life, right? The
Yeah,
people that were supporting me. And I saw failure as a mirror to myself. So what I was trying to do was avoid failure.
yeah,
That has changed. And I think going through and doing some work, which we're not going to get into that on this call, right? That's a whole personal development faith like thing that we're going into. But I think the more that you can kind of cut out some of the noise and get really clear on what are your values, right? Like what are the values that you want to live by and live in? Um, I think the more that you do that and make decisions in alignment with those, the more the outside noise and the fear of failure doesn't affect you as much because you're a little bit more, what I would say is like secure within yourself, right? Confident in yourself. And then you start to be able to change the perspective on failure a little bit of like, hey, it's an expectation. Like I said, I've literally been just like, hey, what are 3 things that I failed at today? Right. Not to focus on them, but to just realize like, hey,
yeah,
this is part of the game here that I'm playing and it's going to happen. Right.
yeah.
And so it was a little bit of a long-winded answer, but I think
I
I
love
think
it.
a lot of that has to do with like I'll tell you like my values are family, business, education, and leadership.
Yeah,
Right. I've realized like going through those are the 4 core pillars. And so now it's I tried to every decision that I'm making, like, how does this affect those areas? Is this in alignment with those things? Because I've
yeah,
lived really out of alignment, like extremely, and my life has imploded. Right.
right.
Um, so it's just that it's just like recognizing that, like, how are you making your decisions? What are you actually doing this for? And if you know if you're in alignment with those values and you fail, it's a lot easier than if you're trying to build something for what you think other people are going to think about you,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
that was a good question, man. I don't know if I've ever been asked that one.
I
I
love it. It's my wife. She's great, dude, and she's always challenging. Me and my kids before dinner every night. One of the things we ask is, where did you see God? What did you do great at? What bad moment did you have today? And where did you name one area you failed in? And I think it's such an important question, because we tell our kids, if you can't tell us a failure that you failed at today, then you didn't try hard enough.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing everything right, you're doing everything correctly, there's no mess ups, there's no hiccups. Unfortunately, you're probably in a state of complacency. You're probably in a state of standstill where you're not growing. I tell my kids all the time, like, be confident enough to suck at something for a season until you get good at it.
Yeah.
And so I think, that's a question I had to ask myself too, is like, am I more scared of failing, or am I more scared of regret of not acting? And for
Right.
me, it's as scary as failure is, because I think if we're not careful, it can become our identity. I think failure becomes an identity, which is not the truth, because our identity is not correlated to success. It's correlated in other areas.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think, failure, man, it's a tricky thing, but I think it's so necessary
What
that we do.
what are some of the things that you've done? Honestly, I love the fact that you're asking your kids those questions, because I think a lot of times we run from failure, right? We run from the mess ups, and especially nowadays where everything is pretty public, right?
Yeah.
Especially with social media and things like that. But what are some of the things that you've done in your past that when you have failed, like, do you have a process that you kind of go through when you fail at something, or like, how do you handle those situations?
Yeah, I think something I talk a lot about, and this is something that I've applied and made applicable in my own life, is you can only grow to the level of your own self awareness. I was telling, some of our agents today, I'm pretty sure you've never seen your face unless it's been through the lens of a mirror, or through a camera, or through some other object to
Yeah.
be able to see your own face. Same thing applies to the areas in our life. I can't grow and change things that I don't need to grow or change. And I think failure is that kind of self reflection that comes in and says, hey, this is an inadequacy. This is something that you're kind of short in. This is something that you need to grow in and do better in. And so the
Yeah.
way that I've taken on failure is that that's the mirror where I say, oh, is my beard straight? Does my hair look okay? Got something on my face. Failure is that thing that comes in and reflects what it is that I am and what my makeup is, and what I need to improve on. And I think if we look at failure as an opportunity to grow,
Hmm.
which means that it has to be a comma and not a period, it really is a thing that can accelerate you in growth, in success, in business, in relationships, and faith, whatever it is. I think if you use it in that connotation, that's when things get scary fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think some of the I think some of the things on my end is I would in failure, I would get really down on myself, or I would try to avoid the feeling, right?
Yeah,
And I think one of the things that I try, right? No, I'm not perfect here at all. But I think one of the biggest things that I've really tried to do is like, hey, if I do have a failure or something happen, I was in the past very quick to react and like try and like fix or figure it out or whatever, instead of just kind of sitting for a moment and sitting in it. You know what I mean? A lot of times we try and avoid those like negative feelings or, negative emotions or things like that. And a lot of times it's like, man, you're human. Like, you're going to feel that way no matter what, right? You're never going to be 100% happy and good all the time. And
yeah,
so I think really for me, that process is like, hey, I failed, sitting down and looking at it, giving myself 30 minutes to just feel sorry about myself or whatever it is, right? But giving myself that time parameter and saying like, okay, I'm going to wallow in this for 20 minutes.
yeah,
Then I'm going to take a look and say, okay, where did I mess up? Right? Like, what can I do differently next time? Like,
yeah,
is my communication good? Like, where can I tighten those things up? And then I shelf it honestly at that point and try and go about something else. And then usually I come back to it with a fresh perspective, because
yeah,
emotionally I've made, and like I said, we can get into a lot of that, but I've made a lot of emotional decisions in my past. And it's
yeah,
like, man, if I would have just had this process in place, I would have taken that step back and been like, okay, don't make emotional reactionary decisions. Take that step back and figure out what is it that I need to change? But I need to look at that situation from a different emotional state. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No,
Um, and
I
it's
love that.
not easy. Like, it's not something where I'm like, hey, I do this every single time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's just not it's just not it. But I've tried to implement that as much as possible because I realize like emotions can play into a lot, and feeling them is good. Making business decisions emotionally
Exactly.
typically isn't the greatest move in the world.
What
So
goes back to like the level of vulnerability we're willing to allow ourselves to operate in. I think even us, even more so as men, the environments that we're in
yeah,
and the things that we're surrounded by, your environment is everything, man. Like if you don't have the environment that's going to allow you to be able to kind of, like you said, wallow and say, dang, I messed up, and have that vulnerability to accept that and not suppress it. I think that's where a lot of us go wrong is we suppress
hmm
the ramifications, and kind of, like you said, shelf it. They're still there. It's still an inadequacy. Inadequacy. It's still something that we need to address. But I think we suppress it, and then from there we find ways to try to busy our mind, and the tactic of avoidance comes into play. And I
yeah,
think ultimately that's subconsciously still always there. It's still something we always still think about. So I love the fact that the vulnerability of like, because I'm my own worst critic. I don't know about you, but no one's going to ever be harder on me than and so I have to
I
my five
yeah,
to 10 funerals, and then move on and put my big boy pants on and say we got to figure this out. So man, I love that.
yeah, and yeah, when you talk about being your own worst critic, right? Like, I think that is just a natural. I feel like a lot of people are that way, right? And so for me, I've also I do enjoy feedback, and I've realized that people that are giving me feedback, I have to be open to it, and especially if you've gone through an emotional bad situation,
Yeah,
right? And then you're getting feedback, you're like, hold on a second, like I've already beaten myself up way worse than anything you could say. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, I heard somebody say one time, and we'll take like 5 more minutes after this and talk about a couple other things. But I heard somebody say one time, if you talk to yourself, like if you talk to other people the way that you talk to yourself, how many people would be in your life? Like, how many friends would you have? How many family members would speak to you? And it's like, not a lot, you know? And so
yeah,
that was a big thing for me where I was like, man, I probably got to do better at that, because like
yeah.
I wouldn't have any friends at all, like
Man,
at all.
that's deep, man. That's deep. I love that.
Yeah, very much so. Um, yeah, so we'll kind of wrap up here a little bit. I'd love to give you just an opportunity here just to talk a little bit specifically about like who you're working with and some of the people that you'd love to connect with and that sort of thing, and then we'll kind of wrap up here.
Yeah, well, like I said, obviously, broker here at Homestead and Co. in Edmond. So, real estate world is kind of the world that I am wrapped up in a lot. Um, Also, kind of like I said, I'm the CEO and founder of the 1%. Um, and so that's a coaching program. We have online courses, books, and things like that. So, for me, I try to keep my connections, kind of more of a wide casted net. Um, Try to surround myself with people who are like minded, who want to grow, want to
Mhm.
grind, and want to get better. So that's one of the reasons, man. I was so excited to be able to connect with you and get to know you more and about what you do, because I think now more than ever we need to surround ourselves with people who are somewhat like minded, who have some similar goals, who are going to push us to be better. And I think, dude, I think we don't take in consideration how important our environments are. So that's kind of my MO, man. Just how do I become better, and how would I help? The God given talent that I have to help other people become better.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. I love it. Um, Well, I appreciate you taking time today, man. This has been good. I know we're gonna do a lot more of this type of stuff together, which I'm really excited about. I do want to mention that we are going to be putting on an event. My partner Tracy Gore from Edmond, and then two other top tier individuals. We're throwing an event here on November 21st in Oklahoma City, and it is specific to realtors, mortgage professionals, business owners, anybody that is really looking for better leadership, how to improve the foundational aspects of their business, and just to be in a room full of other like-minded individuals. And so that's going to be pretty much a full day event. One day, it's going to be Friday, November 21st. So I will also put that link, and Anthony, we can throw your link in under the chat in the comments. And yeah, so
I'm
hopefully
excited about that.
we
I
see
feel like
some people out here, and
yeah,
it'll be good, man. So
be some powerhouses, and I think anyone in the Oklahoma metro or even surrounding states, like this is going to be a huge opportunity for you guys to come in and understand the foundational pieces of what leadership are. These are people who have been in the trenches. They've experienced a lot of things that we're experiencing now, and they've overcome them. And I think it's an event you're not going to want to miss. So I'm super excited for it.
awesome, man. All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate your time, and we'll sign off here.
All right, man. Good to talk to you, Drew.